Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So today's video is going to be a yearbook style picture page in my planner using Planners Anonymous PAU kit. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so this is a project I have kind of been thinking of for a little while, and it just so happens to fit in with the kind of college school theme of the PAU kind of kits. So what this is it's going to be kind of like a yearbook style picture album thing that you can put, or picture album insert that you can put into your planner and then change the photos. So whether or not you want to leave it as always the same photos, it's obviously can be altered to be that. But if you do want to pull them out and change them all the time, you can do that too. So I'm going to start off with cutting out a few things. So I'm going to use both of the pieces of this kind of school book paper. To me, it just kind of has those connotations of a yearbook. Depending on how we go, I might do a cover just to sort of see where we end up, but we'll see. So the first thing we need to do is to cut some squares into this. Now, I'm going to use my Cricut because for me it's a lot easier. What I am going to do is I'm going to link the file down below. I will share the file that I have made to make my little picture box kind of thing. But if you don't have a Cricut or don't have a cutting machine that you can do that for, you can use a die set. This is my infinity die set from Hero Arts, but lots of different stores or lots of different companies have them. And you can just cut the squares out one by one, or you can cut them out by hand just using a craft knife and a ruler. So it's completely doable. None of this is going to be hard. It's just a little bit easy for me using the Cricut. So I'm bringing in my Cricut mat and I'm going to pop down my piece of paper. Now what I want to make sure I do here is that the Cricut has a tendency to cut a little bit like in. And because I want to get this whole page on here and it's a letter size sheet, not an A4 size sheet, I'm just short a little bit of room. So you can see here, if I have this here, it's a little bit wider. So when I've been cutting them, I've been going that way. But because this one is going to fit this way, it will actually fit going upwards. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out. I'll give you a quick look at the project that I am going to be working with here. Like I said, I will make this available via Cricut Design Space. But it's basically just 6 boxes on a planner, an A5 planner sized page. Very, very simple, nothing too complicated. So all I'm going to do is just hit make it in the top corner. It's going to send it over to my Cricut. I'll go continue. It'll get the Bluetooth sorted out. I'll hit paper or cardstock. I do medium cardstock for PA paper, and I can cut this out. So when I pull this off, you're going to see how how close I came to the edge. Just as a little hint with Cricut mats, in case you haven't heard this one before, always bend it away from the mat, and that way your paper won't bend or won't get curled. But that's how close we got to the edge. So I did it absolutely perfectly. Woohoo! All right, so there's our little inside part of this. The next thing we're going to need is a piece of cardstock, and this is going to be the base of what we do. Where did I put it? I had it just before. There it is. This is going to be one of my bits of paper stock cardstock. It's my favourite. It is the strongest I have, and I'm actually completely okay with this being just a teensy bit smaller. And because we've cut this out, it'll fit really nicely. But I do want it to be just a teensy bit smaller so it sits behind. Now, the number one thing you're going to notice through all of this is I haven't punched the holes, and I haven't done that on purpose because I want to punch them all at the same time. So I'm just cutting this to be A5 using my trimmer, and you can see here in a second that it's going to fit right behind there. And then I'm just going to give this the smallest little extra trim around the outside. And when I say the smallest, I mean I'm cutting off literally 0.1 of a centimetre. It's so small, and the idea is just I just want it to be just a tinsy little bit smaller than my actual piece so that it becomes easier to hide stuff. So a very, very small amount has now come off that. Barely worth it, but enough to do it. So you can see now I can, if I line this up, you can sort of just see the edge of that brown popping through. It's very slight, but it's there. So that's the gist already of what we're going to do. From there, the next part is to obviously make yourself, make it so that it's a window. So the way we're going to do that is just with some acetate. You guys have seen me use acetate on my channel heaps of times. This is just a really thin one. I don't need it to be super duper really strong because obviously it's going to be straight in behind here. It's not a shaker. It's not being pulled. It can be the slightly thinner kind. The other thing I'm just going to do... No, I'm not. So the way that I'm going to make this is, so rather than putting one page in at a time, I'm going to put multiple pictures and slide the whole page in. And then I can then, if one of them's not full yet, I can fill this sort of little bit in and just use some washi tape or something similar to sort of keep them hidden if I want to. But that's why we're not going to throw those away. But I think I'll trust myself to do this next part. So I'm going to bring in some double-sided tape for this because we do want this to be as strong and yet as thin as possible. And we want this to come right around the outside of our little window piece. So I'm just popping that down. I really love the brown here too, just as a side note. There we go. If I've got too much, I can just pull it off. It's not a problem. And then because this bit is going sort of right up against that acetate, I am also going to put some down the middle and the little side panels there. It isn't a shaker though, so you don't have to be 100% make sure every little ounce is covered. You can, or inch is covered. You can have gaps. Alright, so once you've got that done, then we can bring in our acetate. Now we don't need this to be A5 size. We don't need it to be the same size as our page. We do need it though to cover everywhere there is double-sided tape. So what I'm just double checking here is I went a little bit long down here. So I'm just going to pull that up. I meant to grab hold of the tape there and I didn't do a very good job. Just because I don't want any sort of sticking out and up. I want it to be just in the little window bit that we want it. Alright. So I can cut off. And this is where a permanent marker or a whiteboard marker helps a lot here, because you can use this to kind of mark where you need to cut. You can also use here, if you don't have a sheet of acetate, you can use some packaging. As long as it's sort of flat and hasn't been too wrinkled, you'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this down and I'll be right back. And there we've got our little window portions. So then the next part is to actually put this onto the backing piece. Now, like I said, I'm using this slightly thicker cardstock. You don't have to. It's just a bit to give it that little bit of strength. I'm actually thinking I'm going to do this as a double-sided so that there's enough room to do 12 photos here. But you don't have to do that either. But the way then we're going to put this down, now you can do it two ways. You can either do it with double-sided tape or you can do it with skinny foam tape. Now I'm using skinny foam tape because I find it easier to get my little piece in and out as opposed to doing it with the double-sided tape, which is just, you got to sort of shove it a bit more. I don't mind bulk in my planner, so that's why this is okay for me. But if you don't like bulk, if you're someone that likes your planner to stay a little bit smaller or a little bit skinnier, then I would highly suggest the double-sided tape. So I'm going to pop that down all the way to the top, or closer to the top. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It does help if it is, because it helps the paper stay in, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And then we're going to pop this sort of down on the edge so it's got some room to slide in. So you want to give it a little bit of room. A little bit too far. I always cut too much foam tape. There we go. And I'm just making sure that's definitely the top. And then we can come in with this bit on the bottom. Now the bit on the bottom is almost the most important piece, because you need that to sit right where you want your bottom to stop. Good. And that's then sort of how this is going to all come together. So the next sort of thing to show you is then how to make the insert. For me, a piece of regular cardstock or regular paper is fine. You don't have to do anything super strong, but it does help a little bit if it's a bit stronger. So this is another piece of cardstock, the exact same as what we've already cut. Oh, well, close enough. It's at least got the windows and everything. But what I've done is I've drawn myself up a little template on the back. So all I need to do here is cut a piece of cardstock to be about this size. So what it is, it's an A5 minus probably about 3 centimeters. So if we go A5, I'm just going to use black because it's a little bit, I think it looks nicer when you're in there. So cut that to A5, which is sort of 14 and a bit. 14, I think it's 14.9. So I'm going to cut this to be 13 to start with, and we'll see how that goes. Because what you want to do then is get that window piece and see how much more you need to cut off. Okay, I need to cut off a bit more than that. Now, if you're a person that doesn't like to measure like this, if you just want to measure the gap and do it that way, obviously you can. I'll tell you exactly how big this ends up being in a minute. But I don't mind cutting little strips off my cardstock. I use it on other things. Alright, but then I went and cut it too far. Let's do it properly, shall we? So it's just short of 12. So if I cut it to 12, thankfully I had that other bit. That should fit almost. So just squidgy off a little bit more. There you go. So that's going to slide in there just fine. And then you just need to cut off a little bit at the top. I'm just going to start slow here and just work out where it needs to go. I like mine to sit a little higher because I like having somewhere to grab hold of it. And I'll show you a little trick I like to use for that in just a minute. Now I think I haven't put this down completely straight, which is why it's not sitting in very well. So all I'm going to do is pick up this bit of foam, which I can do because it's sitting on the acetate. It's actually got more give than you think it does. And I'm just going to move it over. I've sort of stretched it, but that's okay. And then let's try that again. Yeah, that's better. Slides in there nicely. So that's sort of our little, where all our pictures are going to go. And then, like I said, I've got this little window thing where I've kind of lined up roughly where the windows are going to sit. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of washi tape and just hold this still in my little jig here that I've made up. And I'm already saying that's not going to work because it's too far over. So when I made this one, I must have made it slightly different. Doesn't matter how much I prepare, guys, I always end up not quite doing what I thought I was going to do. So then I'm just coming in with just a bit of lead pencil and just roughly drawing in the boxes. Now, this is for layering purposes only. It's not, you're never going to see it. You can rub it out if you want to. It's just so I can roughly find where my little squares are going to sit. Yeah, not even close anyway. Might be because I went that way. If I do it that way, it's not too bad. Just using that tape to be able to pull this in and out. Like I said, I'll show you an extra bit of tapey thing in a minute. So I come down like 1/2 centimetre from those. Okay, so it's all about the downs. The lefts and rights are right. Like I said, no one's going to see these anyway, so don't stress if this looks horrible. Okay, so I'm just grabbing a bit of the PAU washi tape. Whoops, I tore it. Because I want to use these pens as sort of my grippy bit here at the top. So I'm just going to cut or take off a bit of it. There we go. Just pull that out. We'll go to about there. And then pop that down there. And that's going to sort of be my handle. Now I'm just going to fold it over. So we've got that little bit to be able to grip it with. And it's already being stuck on, so it sort of does help. So the next thing we're going to need is our little photos. Now the reason I cut these squares to be this size is I do print off a lot of little photos of Charlotte that are sort of 2 inches. I think they're 2 by 6. I think that's maybe, no, it can't be 2 by 6. Might be 2 by 3s. And that way you just have to cut just a little bit off on the corner to kind of get what I want here. So what I've done is I've just cut a bunch of these down to be 2 by 2s, which is my little sort of size. And I'm just sticking these down. These have just got a little bit of glue tape stuck on the back. And I'm just putting them down roughly where my template, where my little pencil lines tell me that they need to go. Because we can still pull these in and out and in and out and in and out, we can alter these and make them fit and do whatever we need to do. But it means then we can also change these really easily. If you did want them to be permanent, obviously you can stick them in a bit better than that. You can stick them on the same piece of cardstock. I like being able to pull them in and out. So I'm just going to, this is all before we stuck it down to the piece of cardstock. So you can see that'll sit, the little pens will sit just off the top. And then I can see here where these need, or if these need to move. I'm also just going to add just a little bit, and I really not hate doing it because I don't mind doing it, but I'm just going to add just a little bit of powder just to the side of that tape. That'll just sort of get rid of some of the stick. And then just with a clean piece of paper towel, I'm just going to give that acetate a bit of a rub because I don't want that to get powdery. That's better. You can see already how much easier that slides. So once that's in the spot, I just need to see, so that one at the bottom needs to come down just a bit more. And I think all of these just need to go a little bit to the left. Now these aren't the photos that I will end up using. I need to print out some more, but for the purposes of today's video, these are going to work fine. But I'm going to put in, I've got this really gorgeous 12 months of Charlotte for her first 12 months that my grandma sent us when we found out we were pregnant. And I've got her first year in there. I want somewhere to put her second year, so that's where this is sort of going to come into it. So you can see now they all line up perfectly, and then we can go ahead and stick this to our backing sheet. So I'm just going to pull that out. There's our backing sheet. I'm just making sure it's the right one because I did have two here. I think that's the right one. Whichever one is, no, see it wasn't. Whichever one is the smallest. There we go. So then we can remove the backing paper, or the backing paper to our foam tape. And we can stick this down. Now the part that you just have to be a bit careful of, and it's because we've made it a little bit smaller, you just sort of have to line it up and eyeball it, because you can't use the edges to kind of do that for you. But because we've made it smaller, it's fine. Alright, it looks boring, right? That looks not as much fun, but then you can bring your photos in, slide it down. Hoping it'll slide through. There we go. Just have to give it a bit of a wiggle. It's just getting stuck on the foam, but it will go. There it is. There it is. You can push that all the way down. Get gravity to do its thing a little and tap, tap, tap. If you have trouble, if you can't get it to go, you sometimes need to get a bit of space. This is where I like to grab my ruler. Come in behind it. See how you can sort of see it popping up down here? There it is. And then you can pop, pop, pop. And because we used cardstock, that was black card, so it's got a bit more weight to it. It will move. You can sort of push a little bit. Oh, don't be mean. I don't mind that little pop at the top. To me, it's fine because it's washi tape too. It's completely movable, bumpable, all the things. So then we've got our cute little front here. I'm then going to grab some of the die cuts and the stickers, and we'll make this look a little bit fancier. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and do the back side, because I do want this to be a double-sided kind of thing. So you can put like the little, and depending on your photos too, this is where I probably should have looked first and seen where all the photos sat. But like that works really nicely in the middle there. And then we've got the little pom-poms, more pom-poms. I was just thinking, how many of these little pens do I have? Because if I've got enough, what you could do I have any in the sticker book? Because what you could do is you could use the pens, like these little pens, as titles. So for me and Charlotte here, where it's sort of 13 months, 14 months, 15 months, etc., you could do that. So I'm just seeing how many of these little mini pens I've got. I have a feeling there's only 4. And obviously that works for this side. It might not work for the other side, but I reckon I'll give it a go if I have enough. I knew there'd be another one. That, because I just don't want the same colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, which will be in the exact same way. Stick all of these down, and then we'll come back and finish this last little bit of decorating. Okay, so there's my second side also put together. I actually did a pretty good job of lining that up. I'm a bit proud of myself. There is one little problem with the back side, and that was that I forgot to sort of mirror it so it would move over. So my wider side's actually on the wrong side. I think when I punch the holes it'll still be fine. I'm not panicking about that. So I haven't put the photos on the back because I don't have any others at the moment. So just for now I'm going to just pop in my little bit here. I love that those little washi things sit at the top. I just think it's really, not clever, that's not the right word, but I'm very proud of that sort of little idea. So then we're going to go ahead and pop on our little plates. So the great thing about the die cuts these days is that they have sticky on the back, so I don't have to stick these down. I can just let them do it themselves. So I'm just going to pop these on. I'm just going to make sure I don't put the pink ones near the pink ones and the blue ones near the blue ones. So I've got pink, blue and orange, so I'll go pink. And I know I can hear you all screaming at me going, but you haven't punched the holes yet. Don't worry, I'm coming to it. And I'm deliberately putting these opposites. I think they look cool. So don't panic. Now there is a little bit of what I would say drop in this, because obviously I've got foam all around the edges, but I don't have foam in the middle, because otherwise that piece of paper wouldn't slide down. It's actually fine. Like, it's not going to cause any problems as long as you don't push too hard on it. But it's going into a planner anyway, so it will inevitably get a little bit squashed. The idea is, though, that it gives you that room to be able to get that piece of paper in and out. And if you saw when I put that second one in just before, oops, I have to move that over. You may have noticed that it slid in a little bit easier, and that was because I made it just a little bit smaller. So that way it did slide a little bit easier. Now I'm not going to put the girl with the pom-poms back in here because she just doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to put something else sort of on here. But there's our little plates. And then what have I got? I'm going to do one other little thing in just a minute. So just hang tight because I'm going to make one extra bit. I've got pens. This was the one that had all the sort of big stuff. So I don't want to go too over the top. I like the fact that they sort of stand out from there. But then I'm just going to come back and punch the holes really quick. So the reason I left it was so that I could do one punch, and that would get most of this. This is the Kiki K hole punch. I haven't tried it with this much cardstock before, so we will very quickly find out if this is going to work, and it's not, which is fine. So I'm just going to grab out another bit of cardstock that I've had sitting around that's got the holes punched in it. And just going to mark this. This was my original piece that I was trying to do it by hand. So trying to work out how to measure it up and get what I wanted, and I was just going to trim it with a craft knife. Completely able to do that if that's what you want to do, if you don't have a Cricut, like I said at the start. But if you do have a machine, take advantage of it, because that's what they're there for. So this is the J. Burrows one hole punch. It is the biggest one I own, as in it's got the most amount of space. So I can get all this cardstock in between. It does mean I have to do a little bit of sort of pulling off and pulling back on again, but that's okay. Just means I'm going to get a clean kind of line of holes. I don't have to worry about, haven't had to worry about lining them up along the way to make sure that they all line up. And I hate when the holes aren't straight. It just drives me crazy. Okay, so there we've got all our photos and everything like that. Just to grab the planner in and show you what it looks like. So let's go to our little Charlotte section that I have here at the back. We've got all the doctors and stuff. You can see that that's going to sit in there just beautifully. And you can sort of see that pop up at the top, that little bit of washi. But I think that's okay. It sort of gives the tabs at the top something nice to pop onto. I've kind of made it a little bit too high when I punched those holes, but that's all right. I'm going to cope with that. So just as an extra little thing, because I was sort of thinking about it while I was doing this, I do want to just make one other little thing. So I feel like I need a, not a title page, that's not the right word, but I just need something on the front here. So I'm just going to grab, I love this piece of paper with the minis, it makes me happy. So I'm grabbing that, I'm cutting that down to be A5 width. I'm always really comfortable with my width. I'm not so comfortable with my height. So we'll just mark that on the back and trim that down. Because I want this to line up with this, I am going to just really quickly mark my holes, and then that'll all line up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before I do that, I'm just going to grab, I think I want to use the acetate, because I've actually had a lot of fun playing with acetate today. And this is the reason that you couldn't use the acetate on the windows, is obviously because you actually want to be able to see the pictures of Charlotte, although it's actually not too bad. So I'm just going to cut this down just to be a little bit thinner than A5. So A5, like I said, 14.9, so I'm going to make it be 13. And then I'm also just going to trim it to be, let's go 9.5. 9.5. I'm going to turn this into a little pocket, and I'm deliberately moving it over to the left so that when I punch my holes, which I'll do right now, it's not going to hit the acetate. So the hardest thing ever with acetate is making sure that you can't see it when you stick it down. You're never going to ever get it to be perfect. So what I like to do is just hide it. So this is the absolute skinniest washi tape I've ever been able to find. I think it's about 2 mil, maybe 3 mil. But it's basically going to be able to be hidden behind the skinny washi from PA, which is the washi I want to use on the bottom. So I'm going to put this as close to the bottom as I can get it on the acetate. It's actually really hard to see, but that's okay. And then the same on the sides. So I'm going to come up the edges on both sides, and then we're going to hide it with the washi tape. I'm finding it easier to use, like to be able to see where the edge of the acetate is by sticking it on the paper. Otherwise I just use my mat. So there you can see we've got a little pocket sort of set up here. You can take off, we can take off the acetate. I'm just debating whether I do the acetate first or if I do the washi tape first. And I'm leaning towards the washi. There it is. So I'm just going to pop that down, and again right on the edge of the acetate. And I can just trim off the excess all around the edges. And make sure I've got nothing on there before I take off the backing sheet and just stick this straight down. It's had a mini panic attack that I had put that round the wrong way, but I haven't. But what this then does is gives me somewhere to put my little squares. So that, for example, on this one, if I wanted to put these back together for a little while to hide the fact that I haven't got the bits or haven't got the photos, I can do that. And I'm just using some of that scrap washi just to hold that in place. It's not going to stay there forever. It's probably not going to stay there for very long because I'll get those photos done in the next couple of days. You can just use them to hold them down. But it also then is very easy to just sort of pop that up. So you can sort of see and fold it. If you wanted to keep them in completely, you really could. But like I said, I'm going to use that to keep the little bits in so that I can just pull those in and out. So I'll put them in there, little pockets. And then I'm going to grab, where is it? I pulled it out before so I wouldn't lose it. There it is. I love this composition. I'm just trying to decide if I want to use the composition book part or if I want to use, oh, it's right, so that's right. I'm like, what's going on? Or if I want to use the like nameplate. I'm leaning towards the composition book because I just love the way it looks. Yeah. So I'm just going to stick that on the front in the middle. And I can either write a title on here, I can type a title on here, whatever I want to do, or I can just leave it. But now it kind of looks like my little photo album that I've made for Charlotte. So there you have it. That's the little project using PAU. Like I said, I've been kind of thinking about this for a while, and then my crafty friends, when I was a little bit stuck for an idea with this project, my crafty friends were sort of like, it's good for a yearbook, and I was like, bingo, there it is. That's what I was trying to think of. So there you have my little thing. You could also use this just as a side if you didn't have bunches of pictures for like of your child during the year or whatever. You could do this as a yearly thing. Like you could do year 1, year 2, year 3, like for school. And because you've just made the pages up, you can just add more as you go along. You can make this into a whole album if you wanted to, and have sort of this year by year look at what your child is doing. And I just think it's really, really cute. Really, really simple. You can obviously, like I said, keep the pictures as they are. Or if you want to change them, if you sort of find one along the way that you like better, you can just pull this out. Ah! Part of me really wants to just trim that just a teensy bit. Oh, this is where I shouldn't do things. Hold on. Just trimming that just 1/2 centimetre off that edge, but it'll slide in so much better. There it is. There it is. How much easier is that? I was just too wide, and that's fine. There you go. Much better. And you still don't see the black or anything, so it works. You just grab that ruler just to help get in that last. There it is. And because it is black on the back, you sort of don't notice so much if you haven't quite lined them up perfectly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little project. I'd love to see if you do any recreations of, or if anything else you do with it. I'm really loving all the new kits that I've got from PA at the moment. I will do lots of more PA decorations and projects coming up the next few weeks, so make sure you stay tuned. If you do love PA like I love PA, there are plenty of Planners Anonymous projects and decorations if you hit the playlist at the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for lots more, and I will see you again in my next video. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!